Remember when Amazon thought they could take on the iPhone? Or when Facebook tried to make their own phone? How about that time Samsung had to tell people to stop bringing their phones on airplanes because they kept catching fire? The smartphone industry is filled with billion-dollar disasters, epic failures, and ideas that seemed brilliant until they actually hit the market. Some of these phones were too expensive, others were too weird, and a few were just plain dangerous. These are the 10 biggest smartphone flops in history. If you love tech history and want to see more videos about the biggest failures and successes in the industry, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Let's get started. The smartphone revolution changed everything. It changed how we communicate, how we work, how we entertain ourselves, and how we navigate the world. But for every success story, there's a graveyard of failed devices that cost companies fortunes and left consumers scratching their heads. These aren't just phones that didn't sell well. These are legendary disasters that became cautionary tales in boardrooms around the world. So let's count down the 10 biggest smartphone flops in history. Starting at number 10, we have the Amazon Fire Phone. Back in 2014, Amazon was riding high. They dominated online retail. Their Kindle e-readers were everywhere, and their Prime service was growing like crazy. So naturally, CEO Jeff Bezos thought it was time to take on Apple and Samsung in the smartphone market. The Fire Phone launched with a lot of fanfare and some genuinely interesting features. It had something called dynamic perspective, which used 4 front-facing cameras to create a 3D effect on the screen. It also had Firefly, a feature that could identify objects, songs, and products just by pointing your camera at them. Sounds cool, right? But here's the problem. Nobody wanted it. The phone was exclusive to AT&T, which immediately limited its potential audience. It ran on Amazon's Fire OS, which was based on Android, but didn't have access to the Google Play Store. That meant no Gmail, no Google Maps, and a severely limited app selection. The phone was also expensive, launching at $199 with a 2-year contract, the same price as an iPhone. But the biggest issue was that the Fire Phone felt like a shopping device first and a phone second. Every feature seemed designed to make it easier for you to buy stuff from Amazon. The Firefly feature? It was basically a buy button disguised as innovation. Consumers saw through it immediately. Sales were dismal. Within 2 months, Amazon slashed the price to 99 cents with a contract. Less than a year after launch, Amazon took a $170 million write-down on unsold inventory and discontinued the phone. Jeff Bezos later admitted it was a failure, but said Amazon would continue to experiment. The Fire Phone remains one of the most expensive lessons in the history of smartphones. Number 9 is the Facebook HTC First, better known as the Facebook phone. In 2013, Facebook was already a social media giant with over 1 billion users. But CEO Mark Zuckerberg wanted more. He wanted Facebook to be the center of your mobile experience, not just an app you opened occasionally. So Facebook partnered with HTC to create a phone that put Facebook front and center. The HTC First launched with something called Facebook Home, a custom Android interface that replaced your home screen with a constant stream of Facebook updates. Your lock screen showed photos from your friends. Your notifications were all about Facebook. Everything was Facebook, all the time. The problem? People hated it. Turns out, nobody wanted their entire phone to be a Facebook machine. The interface was clunky, it drained the battery, and it made it harder to do basic phone tasks like making calls or sending texts. The phone itself wasn't bad. It had decent specs and a nice design, but the Facebook Home software ruined the experience. Sales were catastrophic. AT&T, the exclusive carrier, dropped the price from $99 to 99 cents just 1 month after launch. 1 month. That's how badly it was selling. Facebook Home was quietly discontinued, and the HTC First disappeared from stores. Facebook never tried to make another phone, and Mark Zuckerberg learned a valuable lesson. People want Facebook on their phones, but they don't want their phones to be Facebook. Coming in at number 8, we have the Microsoft Kin 1 and Kin 2. These phones had one of the shortest lifespans in smartphone history. Microsoft launched them in May 2010, and they were dead by July. 48 days. That's all they lasted. The Kin phones were designed for teenagers and young adults who loved social media. They had a unique design, with the Kin 1 looking like a rounded pebble and the Kin 2 shaped like a sliding brick. Both phones had physical keyboards and were focused on social networking. You could share photos and updates to Facebook and Twitter with a feature called the Kin Spot, which was basically a sharing hub. Sounds reasonable, right? But Microsoft made some baffling decisions. First, the phones required expensive data plans, the same plans you'd need for a full smartphone. But the Kin phones weren't full smartphones. They couldn't download apps. They didn't have access to an app store. They were feature phones with smartphone price tags. Second, the target audience was teenagers, but teenagers don't have money for expensive data plans. Parents weren't going to pay smartphone prices for a phone that couldn't do smartphone things. Third, the phones were slow, buggy, and the software was confusing. Reviews were brutal. Sales were non-existent. Verizon, the exclusive carrier, pulled them from stores after just 48 days. Microsoft had spent years and reportedly over $1 billion developing the Kin phones. They were supposed to be the future of social networking on mobile. Instead, they became a punchline. Microsoft killed the project, laid off the team, and pretended the Kin phones never existed. It remains one of the fastest and most expensive failures in tech history. Number 7 is the BlackBerry Storm. BlackBerry was the king of smartphones in the mid-2000s. Business professionals, politicians, and celebrities all carried BlackBerries. They were known for their physical keyboards, excellent email, and secure messaging. But when the iPhone launched in 2007, everything changed. Suddenly, touchscreens were the future, and BlackBerry needed to respond. In 2008, they launched the BlackBerry Storm, their first touchscreen phone. It was supposed to be the iPhone killer. It wasn't. The Storm had a unique feature called a clickable touchscreen. The entire screen was a button that you could press down to confirm selections. It was supposed to give you the tactile feedback of a physical keyboard on a touchscreen. In reality, it was a nightmare. The screen was slow to respond, the clicking mechanism felt cheap, and the whole experience was frustrating. The software was buggy, the browser was terrible, and the phone frequently froze or crashed. Battery life was poor, and the build quality felt flimsy. Reviews were scathing. Users were furious. Verizon, the exclusive carrier, was flooded with returns. BlackBerry released multiple software updates to try to fix the problems, but the damage was done. The Storm sold reasonably well at first, thanks to BlackBerry's brand loyalty, but word of mouth killed it. A second version, the Storm 2, was released in 2009 with improvements, but it was too late. The Storm's failure marked the beginning of the end for BlackBerry. They never recovered their dominance, and within a few years, they were a footnote in smartphone history. The Storm was supposed to save BlackBerry. Instead, it helped destroy them. At number 6, we have the Samsung Galaxy Note 7. This one's different from the others on this list because the Note 7 was actually a great phone. It had a gorgeous display, excellent performance, a fantastic camera, and the S Pen stylus that power users loved. Reviews were glowing. Pre-orders were strong. Samsung was poised to have a massive hit. And then the phone started exploding. Literally. Reports started coming in that Galaxy Note 7 phones were catching fire while charging. Some exploded in people's pockets. Others caught fire on airplanes. One famously burned a hole through a hotel room carpet. Samsung initially blamed faulty batteries from one supplier and issued a recall. They replaced the affected phones with new ones that were supposed to be safe. But then the replacement phones started catching fire too. It turned out the problem wasn't just the battery supplier. It was a fundamental design flaw. The battery compartment was too small, which caused the batteries to short circuit and overheat. Samsung had no choice. They issued a full recall of every Galaxy Note 7 ever sold. They stopped production. They stopped sales. They told people to turn off their phones and return them immediately. Airlines banned the Note 7 from flights. The FAA issued warnings. It was a complete disaster. Samsung took a $5.3 billion loss on the Note 7. Their reputation took a massive hit. But here's the thing. Samsung handled the crisis well. They were transparent. They took responsibility, and they made sure every phone was returned and destroyed. They spent the next year rebuilding trust. And when they launched the Galaxy Note 8, it was a success. The Note 7 remains one of the most infamous smartphone failures, but Samsung's response turned a catastrophe into a case study in crisis management. Number 5 is the Essential Phone PH1. This one's a tragedy because the phone itself was actually pretty good. Essential was founded by Andy Rubin, the creator of Android. He left Google in 2014 and started Essential with the goal of creating a new kind of smartphone ecosystem. The Essential phone launched in 2017 with a lot of hype. It had a beautiful titanium and ceramic design, a nearly bezel-less display, and a modular accessory system that lets you attach a 360-degree camera. It ran stock Android, which meant no bloatware and fast updates. On paper, it was everything enthusiasts wanted, but Essential made critical mistakes. First, the phone launched at $699, which put it in direct competition with the iPhone and Galaxy S8. But Essential was an unknown brand with no retail presence and no carrier partnerships. You could only buy it online. Second, the camera was mediocre at launch. In 2017, the camera was one of the most important features of a smartphone, and the Essential phone's camera couldn't compete with the iPhone or Galaxy. Third, the modular accessory system never took off. Only one accessory, the 360 camera, was ever released, and almost nobody bought it. Sales were terrible. Essential slashed the price to $499 within months, then to $399. They released software updates that improved the camera, but it was too late. The company burned through hundreds of millions of dollars and never released a second phone. Essential shut down in 2020. Andy Rubin's reputation was also damaged by personal scandals that came to light during this period. The Essential phone had potential, but poor execution, bad timing, and a lack of brand recognition killed it. At number 4, we have the Red Hydrogen One. This phone was supposed to revolutionize mobile media. Red is a company known for making high-end cinema cameras used in Hollywood. In 2017, they announced they were making a smartphone with a holographic display that could show 3D content without glasses. It sounded like science fiction. The hype was enormous. Pre-orders opened at $1,195 for the aluminum version and $1,595 for the titanium version. Those are insane prices for a smartphone, but Red's fans were willing to pay. The phone finally shipped in late 2018, over a year late, and it was a disaster. The holographic display was a gimmick. The 3D effect only worked at certain angles, and there was almost no content to take advantage of it. The phone itself was huge, heavy, and ugly. It had a design that looked like it was from 2010, with massive bezels and a chunky body. The specs were outdated. It launched with a Snapdragon 835 processor, which was already a year old. The camera, which should have been Red's strength, was mediocre. The software was buggy and unfinished. Reviews were brutal. The Verge called it the worst phone I've ever used. MKBHD said it was the biggest disappointment of the year. Sales were abysmal. Red promised modular accessories and future upgrades, but none of them ever materialized. The company quietly discontinued the phone in 2019 and refunded pre-orders for the never-released Hydrogen 2. The Red Hydrogen 1 was an expensive lesson in overpromising and under-delivering. It proved that even a company with a great reputation in one industry can fail spectacularly in another. Number 3 is the Nokia N-Gage. Okay, this one's technically not a smartphone by modern standards, but it deserves a spot on this list because it was one of the most ambitious and disastrous mobile devices ever made. Nokia launched the N-Gage in 2003 as a combination phone and gaming handheld. It was supposed to compete with the Game Boy Advance and also function as a mobile phone. The idea was bold. Gaming on mobile devices was the future, and Nokia wanted to own that space. But the execution was laughably bad. The N-Gage had a bizarre design. To make a phone call, you had to hold it sideways against your face, which made you look ridiculous. People called it side-talking, and it became a meme before memes were really a thing. The buttons were awkwardly placed, the screen was small, and the build quality felt cheap. But the worst part was the game cartridges. To change games, you had to remove the back cover, take out the battery, swap the cartridge, put the battery back in, and replace the cover. It was absurd. The games themselves were mediocre, and developers weren't interested in making games for a platform that nobody was buying. The N-Gage was also expensive, launching at $299, which was more than a Game Boy Advance and a basic phone combined. Sales were dismal. Nokia sold only 3 million units over the N-Gage's entire lifespan, which sounds okay until you realize the Game Boy Advance sold over 80 million. Nokia tried to salvage the concept with the N-Gage QD in 2004, which fixed some of the design problems, but it was too late. The N-Gage became a punchline, and Nokia quietly killed it in 2006. It remains one of the most misguided products in Nokia's history. Coming in at number 2, we have the Google Nexus Q. Wait, you're thinking, the Nexus Q wasn't a phone. You're right, but it was such a spectacular failure that it deserves recognition. Google announced the Nexus Q at their I/O conference in 2012. It was a spherical media streaming device, designed and manufactured in the USA. It could stream music and videos from Google Play to your TV and speakers. It looked cool, like a futuristic orb with a glowing ring around the middle, but it was completely pointless. The Nexus Q cost $299, which was insane. The Apple TV cost $99 and did more. The Roku cost even less. The Nexus Q could only stream content from Google Play, which meant no Netflix, no Hulu, no third-party apps. It required an Android phone or tablet to control it, so iPhone users were out of luck. And it didn't have a remote, so you had to use your phone for everything. Reviews were savage. Nobody could figure out who the Nexus Q was for or why it existed. Google realized they had a disaster on their hands before the device even shipped. They canceled the launch, refunded everyone who pre-ordered, and sent them a free Nexus Q anyway as an apology. The Nexus Q never went on sale to the public. It remains one of Google's most embarrassing failures, a product so bad they killed it before it could do any damage. And finally, at number 1, we have the HP Palm Pre 3 and Touchpad. This is the saddest story on this list because Palm was a pioneer in mobile computing. They invented the PDA with the Palm Pilot in the 1990s. They created the Trio, one of the first successful smartphones. But by the late 2000s, Palm was struggling. The iPhone and Android were dominating, and Palm needed a comeback. In 2009, they launched the Palm Pre with WebOS, a beautiful, intuitive operating system that introduced features like multitasking cards and universal search. The Pre was well reviewed, but it was exclusive to Sprint, which limited its reach. Sales were okay, but not great. Palm released updated versions, but they couldn't compete with Apple and Google. In 2010, HP bought Palm for $1.2 billion, hoping to use WebOS across multiple devices. In 2011, HP launched the Palm Pre 3 smartphone and the Touchpad tablet. The Pre 3 had solid specs and WebOS 2.0, which was even better than the original. The Touchpad was HP's answer to the iPad. But HP made a catastrophic decision. Just 49 days after launching the Touchpad, they announced they were discontinuing it and killing WebOS. 49 days. They gave up before the products even had a chance. The reason? The Touchpad sold terribly, and HP's new CEO decided the company should get out of the consumer hardware business. HP slashed the Touchpad's price from $499 to $99 to clear inventory. At that price, people bought them like crazy, which proved there was demand if the price was right. But it was too late. HP killed WebOS, laid off the Palm team, and eventually sold the operating system to LG, who used it for smart TVs. The Pre 3 barely made it to market. The whole thing was a disaster. HP wasted $1.2 billion buying Palm, spent millions developing new products, and then gave up almost immediately. It was one of the most cowardly and wasteful decisions in tech history. Palm, a company that helped create the smartphone industry, was dead. And HP's reputation in consumer electronics never recovered. So, there you have it. The 10 biggest smartphone flops in history. From Amazon's shopping phone to Samsung's exploding batteries, from Microsoft's 48-day disaster to HP's billion-dollar surrender, these failures prove that even the biggest companies with the smartest people can get it spectacularly wrong. Some of these phones were too expensive. Others were too weird. A few were too dangerous. But they all share one thing in common. They failed to understand what consumers actually wanted. The smartphone business is brutal. It's not enough to have good hardware or innovative features. You need the right price, the right software, the right carrier partnerships, and the right timing. Miss any one of those, and you're toast. These companies learned that lesson the hard way, and it cost them billions. If you enjoyed this trip down memory lane through tech's biggest disasters, make sure to smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you never miss another video. We've got plenty more coming, including the biggest tech successes, the most innovative gadgets, and everything else you need to know about the world of technology. Drop a comment below and let us know which smartphone flop surprised you the most. Did you own any of these phones? Do you remember the Fire phone or the Facebook phone? We want to hear your stories. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.